Devotees should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee as having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges water do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. The devotees working closely with Srila Prabhupada did not think he was deteriorating. No matter how he appeared, he was just giving them another opportunity to serve him. If he wanted to eat or didn't want to eat, if he was pleased or displeased, if he appeared well or ill, they would respond accordingly out of duty and love. This mood was becoming increasingly prominent as Srila Prabhupada more and more depended on his disciples to help him carry out all his functions. He said he was remaining in the world only to satisfy his disciples' sincere desire to serve him. Yet he continued to emphasize that their service to his physical form was not as important as their following his instructions. When two of Prabhupada's sannyasis were taking leave of him, he smiled pleasingly and said, "I may stay or go, but in my books I will live forever." When he heard that 40,000 hardbound books had been distributed in 1 week, he said, "If book distribution increases, I will never die. I will be living for centuries." Tamal Krishna remarked that the book distribution reports were one kind of news that didn't give Prabhupada a headache. And Prabhupada smiled broadly. "No," he said, "it is my life." But one day, while sitting in the garden with Tamal Krishna, Sarup Damodar, and others, Srila Prabhupada became very disturbed when he detected a mistake in one of his already printed books. Tamal Krishna is reading aloud a verse from the first canto which began, "Muniyo sada prishtoham." Srila Prabhupada had him read the synonyms. Tamal Krishna read, "Muniyo, O sages, sadhus." This is relevant. Prishta, question. Sadhu, asked Srila Prabhupada. Thus he uncovered a thoughtless mistake made by the Sanskrit editors. Sadhu means devotee, not this is relevant. Srila Prabhupada became very angry and denounced the rascal Sanskrit scholars. A little learning, he said, is dangerous. Immediately they think they have become big scholars, thinking, "I shall arrange." And then they write all nonsense. He continued speaking about the mistake for half an hour. He was disturbed. He ordered Tamal Krishna to write at once to the BBT and stop these speculations by his disciples, changing his books in the name of editing. The devotees were startled to see Prabhupada so angry. He was supposed to be peacefully relishing a Srimad Bhāgavatam reading here in his garden. Such a change was very serious, he said, because it changed the meaning. Even if the authorized acharyas would make a mistake, he said, it would not be changed. This is Arsha Prayoga. In this way, the acharyas are honored. Srila Prabhupada ki. I think that's enough for one Bhagavatam class. We'll leave that for Chandrasekhar Maharaj. Because you're in Sabha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20, Texts 3 and 4, chapter titled Conversation Between Maitreya and Vidura. So we'll read through text 3 and then chant text 4, since we're doing 2 verses, although both have purports. So I'll read text 3. Dvaipayanat anavaro mahitve tasya dehaja savatmana svatik krishnang tat parang chapyanuvrataha. Vidura was born from the body of Beta Vyas and was not less than he. Thus he accepted the lotus feet of Krishna wholeheartedly and was attached to his devotees. Text 4. I'll read the purport again when we go back, because it's all together. Kim anvaprichjan maitreyang. Kim anvaprichjan maitreyang. Virajastirtha sevaya. Virajastirtha sevaya. Upaganya kushavarta. Upagamya kushavarta. Asinang tattvavitamang. Asinang tattvavitamang. Please chant. Kim anvaprichjan maitreyang. Virajastirtha sevaya. Upagamya kusavarta. Ashinam tadvavitamang. Kim anvaprichjan maitreyang. Virajastirtha sevaya. Upagamya kusavarta. Upagamya kusavarta. Asinam tadvavitamang. Kimanvaprichjan maitreyang. Upagamya kusavarta. Asinam tattvavitamang. Ladies. Kimanvaprichjan maitreyang. Virajatirtha sevaya. Upaganya kusavarta. Asinang tattvavitamang. Kimanvaprichjan maitreyang. Virajatirtha sevaya. Upaganya kusavarta. Ashinam tadvavitamang. Kimanvaprichjan maitreyang. Virajastirtha sevaya. Upagamya kusavarta. Ashinam tadvavitamang. We're going to go back to reading the word for text 3. Dvaipayanat from Vyasadeva, Anuvara, in no way inferior, Mahitve, in greatness, Tasya, his, Vyasa's, Dehaja, born of his body, Sarvatmana, with all his heart, Shrita, took shelter. Krishnam, Lord Krishna, Tatparan, those devoted to him, Cha, and Api, also, Anuvrataha, followed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vidura was born from the body of Veda Vyas and was not less than he. Thus he accepted the lotus feet of Krishna wholeheartedly and was attached to his devotees. Please repeat. Vidura was born from the body of Veda Vyas and was not less than he. Thus he accepted the lotus feet of Krishna wholeheartedly and was attached to his devotees. Purport by Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The history of Vidura is that he was born of a Sudra mother, but his seminal father was Vyasadeva. Thus he was not less than Vyasadeva in any respect. Since he was born of a great father who was supposed to be an incarnation of Narayan and who composed all the Vedic literatures, Sri Shivada Govinda Dev Ki Jai, who composed all the Vedic literatures, Vidura was also a great personality. He accepted Krishna as his worshipable Lord and followed his instructions wholeheartedly. Text 4, word for word. Kim, what? Anvaprichat, inquired, Maitreyam, from the sage Maitreya, Virajaha, Vidura, who was without material contamination. Tirtha Sevaya, by visiting sacred places. Upagamya, having met. Kusarvarte, at Kusarvarta. Haridwar or Hardwar. Asinam, who was abiding. Tattvavitamam, the foremost knower of the science of spiritual life. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vidura was purified of all passion by wandering in sacred places, and at last he reached Hardwar, where he met the great sage who knew the science of spiritual life. And he inquired from him. Shonaka Rishi therefore asked, what more did Vidura inquire from Maitreya? Please repeat. Vidura was purified of all passion by wandering in sacred places. And at last he reached Hardwar, where he met the great sage who knew the science of spiritual life. And he inquired from him. Shonaka Rishi therefore asked, what more did Vidura inquire from Maitreya? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here the words Virajas Tirtha Sevaya refer to Vidura, who was completely cleansed of all contamination by traveling to places of pilgrimage. In India there are hundreds of sacred places of pilgrimage, of which Prayag, Hardwar, Vrindavan, and Rameshwaram are considered principal. After leaving his home, which was full of politics and diplomacy, Vidura wanted to purify himself by traveling to all the sacred places which are so situated that anyone who goes there automatically becomes purified. This is especially true in Vrindavan. Any person may go there, and even if he is sinful, he will at once contact an atmosphere of spiritual life and will automatically chant the name of Krishna and Radha. That we have actually seen and experienced. It is recommended in the Shastras that after retiring from active life and accepting the Vanaprastha, retired order, one should travel everywhere to places of pilgrimage in order to purify himself. Vidura completely discharged this duty, and at last he reached Kusarvarta or Hardwar, where the sage Maitreya was sitting. Another significant point is that one must go to sacred places, not only to take bath there, but to search out great sages like Maitreya and take instructions from them. If one does not do so, his traveling to places of pilgrimage is simply a waste of time. Narottam Das Thakur, a great acharya of the Vaishnava sect, has, for the present, forbidden us to go to such places of pilgrimage because in this age, the times having so changed, A sincere person may have a different impression on seeing the behavior of the present residents of the pilgrimage sites. He has recommended that instead of taking the trouble to travel such places, one should concentrate his mind on Govinda, and that will help him. Of course, to concentrate one's mind on Govinda in any place is a path meant for those who are the most spiritually advanced. It is not for ordinary persons. Ordinary persons may still derive benefit from traveling to holy places like Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, and Hardwar. It is recommended in this verse that one find a person who knows the science of God, or a tattvavit. Tattvavit means one who knows the absolute truth. There are many pseudo-transcendentalists, even at places of pilgrimage. Such men are always present, and one has to be intelligent enough to find the actual person to be consulted. Then one's attempt to progress by traveling to different holy places will be successful. One has to be freed from all contaminations, and at the same time he has to find a person who knows the science of Krishna. Krishna helps a sincere person. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Guru Krishna Prasade, by the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna, one attains the path to salvation, devotional service. If one sincerely searches for spiritual salvation, then Krishna, being situated in everyone's heart, gives him the intelligence to find a suitable spiritual master. By the grace of a spiritual master like Maitreya, one gets the proper instruction and advances in his spiritual life. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakso Anmotamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankai Teguram Yatkipatam Aham Bande Shri Gurum Tirataranam. These conversations are not like ordinary conversations. There's an old adage in my former profession where when you're speaking to someone, in your mind you have to have the end goal of that conversation. It's called having a conversation with a purpose. It's not just for some idle talk. We heard yesterday when we were reading about, someone was giving a class, quoting that from Nectar of Instruction, Atihara Prayasas Cha, must have been Arjuna Nanda. That this idle conversation, prajalpa, is not beneficial. But here we have a whole section of the Srimad Bhāgavatam titled Conversation Between Maitreya and Vidura. So these conversations have a purpose, and that purpose should be known by the devotees. That in these discussions, that such topics are meant simply for the upliftment of society. And society is ultimately composed of individuals. And so this is the end goal. All right? Not that we're in some competition, but at the same time, one has to internally appreciate that everyone has his specific goal of life. And for the devotees, of course, that is to fulfill the orders of the spiritual master. And as we're discussing in various councils, that one who is a devotee is known by how many devotees he creates. It is not that one simply goes to a place of pilgrimage or he's a bhajananandi and he self-satisfied sits, having in his mind reached his ultimate goal, and therefore there's nothing further to pursue. And as opposed to that, we have, according to Srila Prabhupada, we are in that definition of Goshtiyanandi, and that we are meant to go and deliver the fallen conditioned souls. We are not simply to remain in one place, including a temple, and just sit to satisfy our own proclivities about what we think is spiritual life. Someone is thinking spiritual life is just, I want to be peaceful, I don't want to be disturbed by anything, I don't want to have to wash the pots or clean the floor. I just want to chant Hare Krishna. And that's okay if someone can do that. There's that famous story of Prabhupada when the devotees were complaining that Prabhupada, this devotee is only chanting Hare Krishna, he doesn't do any service. Prabhupada said, chanting Hare Krishna is not service? No, it is service, but one has to be completely sincere in order to engage in that. And other times he said, don't imitate Haridas Thakur, sitting in one place, solitary and chanting the holy name. But he was not against it if one was actually competent and capable. And this is according to the discretion of the spiritual master, not according to my observation. My observation is imperfect, because I am imperfect. So we all have to follow the instructions of the spiritual master in order to become free from any tinge of speculation about what should or should not be done. And it's in the first, in text 3, there's that word sarvatmana. And sarvatmana in this area, in this verse, and of course we have to be careful, we saw how Srila Prabhupada was angry with the Sanskrit editors for misinterpreting the word sadhu. But here we see the translation, sarvatmana, with all his heart. So this is correct. Atmana, Prabhupada has broken down in one nice lecture in Mayapur in 1976 that Atma means mind, Atma means body, and Atma also means soul. So Sarvatmana means all things together, complete. And he also said that that is the definition of sannyas. That one is fully surrendered without reservation, mind, body, and soul, with all one's heart. So one has to invest his entire energy into this endeavor. It is not something which can be done half-heartedly and then one will expect some success. There are small successes along the way. These are meant to give us impetus and encourage us on the path. These gradual realizations. First, that I am not this body, and then hopefully that I'm not this mind. And in this way, we come to that realization that I am a servant of Krishna. That is my true identity. Thinking that I am not this body, the impersonalists, the Mayavadis, they also have that. They walk around, what do they say to themselves? Aham Brahmasmi, or Om Namo Narayan, or so many different things. But in this mistaken conception that, yes, I am not this body, now I am God. So we have this appreciation, even from the very beginning. Why? Because we have association with Srila Prabhupada's instructions, which he's distinguishing there in the Lilamrita, that this is our association that will never deteriorate, which will always be available, and which one can always count on with regards to any confusion, for clarification. And there will be, as we've seen over the years. And always the devotees will go back and say, well, let's examine what Srila Prabhupada has said in order to come to a complete understanding. I may have my realization, you may have your realization, but these realizations are not to be taken as the all-in-all unless they're completely in line with what the Guru has said. Sadhu, Shastra, Guru. Those three things must be there in order for something to be complete. If one of them is missing, then there's inconsistency. It's like when you're making something. If you're trying to mix cement, you have to have the proper ratio. Everything has to be there. If you have too much water, it's not going to be effective. If you have too much cement, it won't be effective. Everything has to be perfectly proportioned and properly mixed in order to get the correct result. So this is the same with anything. Krishna consciousness is also the same. Everything has to be in correct proportions. And Srila Prabhupada has given us such a nice system, it is practically automatic. We don't have to think about it. Nobody knew why the Swami is making everybody get up early first at a certain time, but eventually everything became regularized. And so that everyone's rising at 4:30 and taking bath. And nobody could appreciate initially, what was the reason for these things. Chanting Hare Krishna, people could understand somewhat that yes, we want to associate with Krishna, we need this purification, so therefore we're chanting, we're out in the streets. But many of these other little rules and regulations, nobody really understood. These things understanding came about gradually. Even the regulative principles. In the beginning, Srila Prabhupada was giving devotees cigarette breaks. They were allowed to smoke twice a day. Because he could understand that, they had no training. They were coming from backgrounds completely different from his cultural reference points. But he was so expert. So this is where we see that, the point about one can understand a Vaishnava by how many Vaishnavas he makes. So I don't think we've seen anyone as an expert as Srila Prabhupada in this regard. And this expertise is not some material accreditation achieved by going to some college or university. This all comes about due to his specific relationship to Krishna. This is not, in this way we appreciate how the spiritual master is not just some mundane personality. We use the term Nitya Siddha. We don't say that he's, as the karmis try to minimize such great personalities out of envy. They'll say, oh, he was such and such in his former life. Why do people say that? Because they don't have no reference that how has a person achieved such a liberated state, and they don't even understand or appreciate what it means, liberation, or to speak of how to understand one who is liberated. Although we can, from our reading in Bhagavad Gita, and again, this is something in the very beginning, the devotees didn't have Bhagavad Gita. They only had Srila Prabhupada. So they weren't reading, so to speak, at that time. They were only hearing. And this went on for some time. So single-handedly, Prabhupada was able to convert like a touchstone, dull stone, dull matter, iron, hard-hearted living entities from the Lower East Side and turn them into Vaishnavas. So this is a very special understanding. When one has it, his faith becomes a little stronger each time he appreciates that fact. This appreciation is also not ordinary. If one has no appreciation for the spiritual master, if he's not constantly aware of his singular position as someone who is preeminent, as an acharya, then he may have that lapse of consciousness, which will ultimately result in committing some offense. So he has to be, just like no one has to remind me who is my mother and my father, and what is my relationship with them, and how I should behave and interact. I may choose to interact in some nonsense way because of my independence, because of my lack of appreciation. But that does not change the relationship. And Prabhupada has said many times that this, just like Krishna, he never forgets the living entity. Whatever the living entity has done something for Krishna, he never forgets him. It is always there, his positive bank balance spiritually. But just like some abandoned account, if he forgets it is there, he cannot utilize it. And this happens. What do they have? Has anyone heard of escheated funds? Anyone know what escheated means? When a person forgets about his bank account for whatever reason, or if a person dies and the bank account is dormant for 5 years, in most states it's 5 years, then that bank account is seized by the bank. They don't take the assets. They keep them actually. They're in their accounts. But they turn over the records to the state, to the, in various places, it might be this department or that department. And they remain there until someone claims them. So in one sense, that is a little bit like us. We've had our bank balance, but then somehow or other we didn't use it properly, we died, we became in Maya. But if we somehow or other come to know that, I can get this back by going through such and such, it's a formal process. You have to fill out an application. You have to prove it's yours. Then you can get all those funds back. Of course, in the material world, you get them back with interest, actually. So that's even a benefit. But that's similar. Tatenu kampam susamiksamano. Everything is there. It's just lying dormant until you remember about it. So this is our position in one sense. We all came back to Krishna consciousness from wherever we were. It's not an ordinary thing to take up spiritual life. One has to have had some previous connection somewhere, somehow, sometime. There are some exceptions. But for the most part, we see that devotees quickly take to the process because they have some residual memory. And Krishna is helping you, sarvasya chaham riddhi sanivishto, because He's the source of all remembrance and forgetfulness. So He's giving you a concession when you try to make some attempt to understand Him. He says, here, remember this. You're not the body. And here's a little extra intelligence so you can understand things and continue along this process. Otherwise, where is this intelligence coming from all of a sudden to understand this philosophy, which is probably the greatest philosophy? I mean, without a doubt, it is the greatest philosophy. But in our experience, some people may still be thinking that I'm just checking this out. You know, if I find something better, I'm going to go to that. Because he's not convinced. And of course, this will prevent one from making advancement as long as he holds that doubt. So again, this word, sarvatmana. Prabhupada in that lecture, he said, no reservation. Don't hold back. Mind, body, and soul, surrender, no reservation. And then Prabhupada quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Of course, this is the most appropriate because Manasa Deya Gaya Yoki Chumore. So this is everything. Whatever you have, you surrender. And it is not that hard. This whole process is meant to come to that point. Because at the time of death, one is forcibly removed from that situation. And just like anything that's done by force, it is a very difficult situation. If I have to forcibly pull you out of something, because you're holding on to everything, then it's not an easy thing. But if you're completely surrendered and detached, then that transition is instantaneous. One sees the devotees that they're leaving in a very peaceful condition. They're not struggling. They're not lamenting. They're not, how can you say, disappointed with anything. Isn't that the definition of peace? Brahma bhuta prasanatma na sochiti na kankshati. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. Not whatsoever. So we have to appreciate that this whole process is meant to bring us to that level where we can easily make this ultimate transition. And we actually achieve that prior to that. It's not that one has to wait for death in order to become liberated or to become free from material attachment or from this lamentation and hankering. It's not. The devotee is achieving that now, if he wants it. But if he constantly activates these dormant desires, then he'll be, it's like taking one step forward and one step back. It'll be very difficult to make advancement. You have to completely let go at some point. So why not now rather than later? If I have to do it at the time of death, why not now? Why should I be attached, to whatever? Pick one from column A and one from column B. You don't have to. So this detachment is something which is cultivated through the various stages of advancement in spiritual life. Ado, Shwada, Tata, Sadhusanga, everything gradually. But you cannot go from one to the next. It's just like college. You have 101. What's the next class? 201 or 102? It's been a long time since I was in college. But they always use that term, philosophy 101, to denote the very beginning. So this is sort of like that in one sense, that we need to go from one level to the next. Don't stay on that plateau thinking that, I've reached a very nice place. I have a nice place to sleep, a nice place to eat, nice association. That's it. We appreciate that. This is the nectar of instruction. Everything in one place, all to understand. But we're here to help each other, not just to give comfort on a material level to each other. So this is, again, some subtleties with regards to our present situation. That although we're here together in one place, we're not a commune, like the hippies had, like many of our God brothers came from, and who we've heard so many stories about. And that was very nice that they all lived together, and many of them all joined together. So in one sense, that was beneficial because my friends, I have trust in my friends that they've found something nice and they want to share it. And so in that way, we're also doing our part to share this transcendental knowledge with the general public. And the best way, of course, to do it is to maintain their ability to come and have darshan of their Lordship Sri Sri Radha Govinda. This is where we are. One has to ultimately concentrate his efforts somewhere. And so it becomes problematic if he's trying to divide this concentration to too many things. So Prabhupada has given us these temples, which are specifically meant to make devotees. That's the only reason that we have temples. It's not for us to live comfortably and to eat comfortably and to sleep comfortably. No. They're here to make devotees, to give them the opportunity to associate with devotees, to take Krishna Prasadam, and to see the deities. And so therefore we have a Sunday Maha cleanup, where we make the temple presentable for these guests who will be coming, just like we all came. I remember my first Sunday feast at the Henry Street Temple. It had such, of course, there's always anticipation. What will find? What will he encounter? Totally new experience. We should always be appreciative when a devotee comes into the temple. It's not an ordinary thing, for whatever reason, especially on Sunday. Newcomers coming to the temple. How did they come here? Of course, they all came because they somehow encountered the Harinam party, got some prasadam, a mantra card, a book, and now they've come. This is the beginning of the end of their material life. And we have to treat these souls very, very compassionately. Right? Otherwise, we're not fulfilling our duty. I mean, just imagine if you came into the temple and somebody just casually dismissed you. Oh yeah, go this way, go that way. No. The devotees would take personal attention of every person who came into the temple. They would greet them, they would make sure, is this your first time? Did you receive a book? Did you receive a mantra card? What do you know about Krishna consciousness? And after gauging your response, they would converse with you accordingly. So this is and who doesn't remember those first devotees, We were so impressed by their confidence and knowledge. And immediately we realized that this is not some ordinary situation. At least that was our experience. And the temple itself was also a very transcendental experience. It seemed to be a living entity. It seemed to have its own identity. The Henry Street Temple. We don't describe it as like 439, some brownstone address over in Borum Hill. No. Henry Street Temple was in itself part of the experience. It stood out. Of course, it was because of the devotees there, and Srila Prabhupada, and Radha Govinda, and Sri Sri Gaur Nitai, and Lord Jagannath. So very, very special. All that concentrated, transcendental potency was sure to have some effect. And so we should also be conscious to amplify that effect through our interaction with the guests. Because they don't know what it is. They can't articulate it. So we have to explain it to them that yes, this temple, coming to this temple is like coming to a holy place of pilgrimage. And that's there in the purport. Narottam Das Thakur, a great Acharya of the Vaishnava sect, has for the present forbidden us to go to such places of pilgrimage. Because in this age, the times having changed, a sincere person may have a different impression on seeing the behavior of the present residents of the pilgrimage sites. It is recommended that instead of taking the trouble to travel to such places, one should concentrate his mind on Govinda, and that will help him. So everything is being given to us right here. And if one is dissatisfied, he should try to understand that that dissatisfaction is coming from some incompleteness in his devotion to the deity, to the guru, to the process. All right? As long as he continues to try to find something else to enliven him, then he will be bewildered. And he will not achieve the desired result. So because of today's Maha Cleanup, and we have so much to do, we want to end the class at this point and take questions. And then we also have, Maharaj and myself, we also have meetings in a half an hour that we have to attend. So are there any questions or Sanskrit corrections? Yes, give the microphone to His Grace, Narada Muni.
Hare Krishna. You talked about living in a commune, but we're not like living in a commune, like we're practicing spiritual life. But a part of our practice is actually associating with devotees. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on how to properly build love and trust with devotees while also not like making things in a like comfortable scenario, like not like putting them into comfort, you know, like materially or things like that. Because part of that is necessary, especially for people who might be newer or for people who are first coming to the temple. Like even someone who just doesn't even know anything about the philosophy. So I guess there's different stages to that, but I was wondering maybe if through your experience, if you know how to properly build that love and trust. Because I feel like as a temple, we are a community, and we, especially living in the temple, it's like important to have relationships that are foundational. So how do we like maneuver around?
Thank you for that question. There's of course, everything has some parallel. It's like you mentioned communes. So the communes have some resemblance. You know, people gather together for a common purpose. So we have to appreciate what that common purpose is. For us, it's the order of the spiritual master. And there shouldn't be any controversy in that regard. You know, we're here to execute the will. Prabhupada made it very clear. He gave a mission statement. If you go to any big business, you'll see that they have one of the first things that they all work on is a mission statement. And so Prabhupada has his 7 different, what should they be called? Considerations that make up his mission statement for ISKCON. Do we know what they are? Can we repeat them? One is to construct temples as places where one can gather. Arjunananda, do a quick search. Arjunananda can do it quick. He's an IIT guy. Okay. But this, the other parallel is that we should consider all of our God brothers and God sisters in the same way that we consider family, because ultimately that respect that one has cultivates And we don't loosely use these terms of brothers and sisters because that's a little mundane. And so therefore we call each other Prabhu, because Prabhu means master. So I'm addressing somebody as Prabhu, and how would I be considering him anything other, according to some mundane calculation? There has to be some mutual respect. And that takes a little effort. One should not be thinking that this person is not my equal. Sometimes there is some material calculation that this person is a college graduate or this person is that. No, it doesn't have anything to do with such mundane considerations. Rather, we just take everything we see through the eyes of Shastra. Shastra Chakshus. Do you have those 7? Yeah. So why don't we read those?
First is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. 2, to propagate a consciousness of Krishna as it is revealed in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhāgavatam. 3, to bring members of the society together with each other and nearer to Krishna, the prime entity, and thus to develop the idea within the members and humanity at large that each soul is part and parcel of Krishna, of the quality of Godhead. To teach and encourage the Sankirtan, this is the 4th, to teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement of congregational chanting of the holy name of God, as revealed in the teachings of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 5, to erect for the members and for society at large a holy place of transcendental pastimes dedicated to the personality of Krishna. 6, to bring the members closer together for the purpose of teaching a simpler and more natural way of life. 7, with a view towards achieving the aforementioned purposes, to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings.
Pretty complete, I would say. And we see how Srila Prabhupada perfectly executed his mission statement, which is not true with many companies. They fail to pursue their stated goals and then they disappear. Or they try to change them because we couldn't do that, so let's just do something else. Right? This is a sure sign of failure. But Prabhupada perfectly enunciated. And this is, this mission statement he's carrying around with him before he came to America, essentially. He had the League of Devotees. It was no different. The same attempt was there, and he didn't try to adjust the mission statement because he wasn't having success in India. He said, no, let me go find some other favorable environment where this mission statement can be fulfilled. And that's the key to success. For us, the key to success is to stick closely to Prabhupada's instructions in all respect and all circumstances. And then there won't be any difficulty. These difficulties arise, just like it says in the Sri Ishopanishad, from incomplete knowledge of the complete. And in other places it's described as due to the 4 defects. And we can trace these things out. It is not that we have to have a cheat sheet to refer to every time we see some situation that appears to be not correct. And these are things that we see are meant to instruct us. At least that's how we should accept them. If I see something that's not right, I shouldn't think that's not right. I should think, how can I correct that? Whether it's in my own situation or someone else's, through compassion or through association. That's the point about association, or being compassionate. And that, just like everything, even the materialists, they say that charity begins at home. And so for us, everything begins at home. Charity, compassion, titiksha, svakarunaka, why these qualities are enunciated. Tolerance, compassion, mercy. So we have an opportunity to develop those. And if we're not developing them here, where else can we develop them? And especially so, the other material parallel is big companies. If they want to be successful, they say you have to treat everybody as a client. Where's Gopal Champu? He knows these things. He read all these books. You have to treat everyone as a client. So that means your coworkers as well as the external clients. Because you can't have this inconsistency. You have to behave, your behavior has to be consistent across the board, as they say. Not that I act one way with one person, one way with another. That devolves into duplicity. Which is not a character trait we're trying to develop. Politics, and like we see Vidura. Why did Vidura leave? Because of the palace intrigues, the politics. Because he's a devotee, he doesn't want any part of it. So if you satisfy Narada Muni, then everyone is automatically satisfied. Any other questions? Corrections? Sanskrit corrections? Any editorial corrections?
Yeah, I think so. So you talked about, we're living in this is kind of off of Narada Muni Das's question also. We're living in a temple, and we're living together, and it's a comfortable situation in a lot of ways. We don't have any work. We have very minimal service responsibilities. We have sleep. We have prasad. So those things are necessary in the beginning, of course, because we have passions and we're trying to direct them somewhere. And it's also important because it draws people to the temple into this way of life. But beyond that, what does it look like in our spiritual development when we start pulling away from the sense gratification and moving into higher spheres? What does that look like in a temple life? Do you understand what I mean?
The primary symptoms is, of course, you just described. Detachment from material. When one has that sense that how can he appreciate it internally? That although the objects of the senses may appear to me, I am no longer concerned with their engaging in them. Just like if a person comes up to you and gets in your face and wants to fight, right? You have a choice. You always have a choice. You can leave that situation, therefore it's no longer an issue or a problem, or you can engage, in which case the outcome is uncertain. So there's only two real aspects in the material world: Krishna and forgetfulness of Krishna. There is no, the materialists try to frame it as good and evil. But evil, where does evil come from? So they don't understand that this is all, Krishna is everything. And evil is just the absence of Krishna and your reaction to it or your manifestation of it. So when you distinguish between that in your activities and the objects of the senses present themselves and you no longer engage with them, then you're making spiritual advancement. You don't have to walk around saying, well, I ignored this sense object today. All right, let me note that in my journal here. In New York City, it's a constant, it's 24/7. Wherever you go outside, there's Maya is everywhere. But you're just no longer overwhelmed by it. You gradually, because of your association with Krishna, in the simplistic analogy is that you're pouring clear water into a glass filled with contaminated substance. And the more you pour that clear water in, that contaminated substance is being displaced. Right? And so, even if you don't see it, others will see it in you. So but that, you also should maintain a certain sense of propriety. In other words, acting differently than I was previously. So that behavioral change, that change in character, is another symptom of advancement. I no longer react to those things the way I previously reacted. I'm not looking for trouble. Because the tendency is there. If you act in a certain way, whether you know it or not, you're attracting a response. If a person is a flashy dresser, why is he a flashy dresser? Because he's looking to attract attention. And so if he's attracting attention, what for? Why is he attracting attention? Then all of a sudden he'll be confronted with the situation that, yes, now Maya has come to you like this. And now what do? It's that much harder. Because you are actually trying to attract Maya. So don't try to attract Maya. Don't try to think of situations or meditate, thinking, feeling, and willing. Those are the three stages. In Kali Yuga, you're not responsible for your thoughts. In previous ages, you were responsible for your thoughts. Sinful thoughts were sins. And they had the effect of degrading the soul. And this sin is not the sin in the common vernacular that we, like the sub-religions consider sin. It is sin. But it's for us, that sin is that it's like erasing something. You're erasing your relationship with Krishna till you have nothing left but a blank page again after all that effort. So don't try to cancel out what you've achieved by backsliding, through whatever, habit or complacency. Once you've achieved that level, keep it. Don't go back down. You've come to the highest stage of human perfection by coming to the temple. Others may say, no, it's not that. It doesn't work. No, this is the highest perfection. But you have to gradually internalize that. We have, in many traditions, you have people called martyrs. They died for their faith. Are you willing to die for your faith? Once you're ready and willing to do that, then you're unstoppable. Maya cannot touch you. She may try, but it's just as easy for you to ignore her at that point as it is for you to walk. It's second nature. These great saints are never bewildered. Maya's still trying to bewilder them. One time, Prabhupada in Mayapur, there was a passage, and it was a little off the topic, but Prabhupada segued, and he was speaking about Haridas Thakur, although it was, 7th canto, prayers by Prahlad Maharaj. And he talked about how Haridas Thakur, how Maya Devi came. And we can understand this is Maya Devi. She's not just an agent of the king who coming to tempt him, because that's the external aspect. This is actually Maya. In one sense. And she came to engage and interact, and ultimately to try to break his vows. And so when Prabhupada, the way he was describing it, he was saying, so she came in the dead of the night, and Haridas Thakur, he responded. What did he say? He said, you wait till I finish my round, and then we'll enjoy. So all the devotees laughed, because the way Prabhupada said it, it seemed a little bit like a joke. And Prabhupada said, no, don't laugh. This is not funny. And so then all of a sudden the room got perfectly silent. And he said, you cannot do that. He said, I cannot do that. You don't play with Maya. You don't think, let me just, I'll just have this one drink or this one joint or this one thing. No, you don't play with Maya. But people do it all the time. And they think, no, it's okay. I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 20 years. I can do this. Hold my Bhagavad Gita. That's not what they say, right? They say, hold my beer. And then all of a sudden there's a spectacular fail. The guy tries to, grind a rail, and all of a sudden he's going down, and he flips, and he road rash for 100 feet. This is what they do. Spectacular fail. You don't try to tempt Maya. Because Maya is stronger than you. Prabhupada said it. He said, I cannot do that. You cannot do that. Of course, we know Prabhupada could do that, but just like Arjuna was putting himself in the position of the common man. So for our benefit, Prabhupada would allow us to relate to him like that, for our edification, not because he was like that. This was one of the things that endeared Prabhupada to us, why we stuck to him. We saw so many swamis come and go, and they were just like jokers. My friend Hansrupa used to use that term very liberally in relation to these individuals, because we lived in Vrindavan. So many pseudo-spiritualists mentioned here in the purport. So many pseudo-spiritualists. So we used to call them jokers, because that was a common 60s term. This guy's a joker, that person's a joker. It means they're not serious. They're phonies. So anyway, I'd like everyone to concentrate on the Maha cleanup for the guests. Everything should be as clean as possible. From the time they enter the front door, when they smell the alluring aroma of incense offered to Radha Govinda's lotus feet, their consciousness should be immediately transformed. They've walked into Vaikuntha. This is how I remember it. And I'd like to give that same experience to everyone who comes into the temple. So, but we're just thinking this is the place where I eat and sleep, then we won't have that same determination to give that same experience to the next person. We have to carry it forward, pay it forward. Any other last questions? Okay. Oh, Ramroy's got his... Yes, so there won't be an evening class. That'll be the evening class. Correct. Yes. All one big happy family. And as far as setting up is concerned, the best place I think for them to set up probably would be in the showroom area. It's the biggest place. In the hallway, it's congested. And in the lobby, it's the Sunday market, unless you want to arrange that the Sunday market goes someplace else. Yeah, and Nitesh is shaking his head, of course, but it's ultimately up to the temple authorities. But we used to have a big market in that showroom, but we would have to clean it up. So that's going to have to be part of the Sunday cleanup, to get rid of all those old chairs, move everything out of there, and make it ready, and make it nice, so that we can put all of Gita Nagari's spectacular farm-to-table produce for everyone to see and take advantage of. Okay. Srimad Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Sri Radha Govinda Dev ki. Ma cleanup ki.